last year when Bradley started working full time. So if some of you have patterns where it has little ends to cut off, just go ahead and cut them off. And if they don't match up to anything, it's because the inside parts didn't have the smart corners. And so they're starting to get that part of it updated between the prints. But it doesn't make any difference. All of them go together, all right? And sometimes you'll run into a thing where I'll say B2 on RP on the other piece where it matches to, all right? But we took all of those B numbers, B2, 3, 4, and 5, off because there was no reason for it. It was just a way for Bradley to keep track of it. And then afterwards we went back to the RP number because it was too many numbers. You know, we ended up with B2, 475. And it's like, we don't need a B2, 475. We could care less. So we got rid of all of that, all right? So now what we're doing new, and I need a pencil here. Oh, great. So we have found that if we actually come in, how many people in here know what a tailor tack is? Okay? Well, every time you do a tailor tack on foundation paper, and you come back and you pull the paper off, the tailor tack comes out. At least that's my experience with it. And I don't like to dry everything. So what I have found is that we can actually take and sew a basting line in here before we trim this down to the exact size. And it will hold the paper to the fabric. Plus, after we remove the paper, then we are able to, when we sew these long curves together, those basting lines just lay right down on top of each other from one sheet to the other. Okay? And so what I'm going to tell you right now, if you want to write a note, you can. Okay? So you have a lot of these RP numbers. The only ones you need to mark really are the inside of these two units. What is that unit? Do you remember what? Which one are you pointing at? The feathers. What's?
Oh, FL3 and FL4.
Okay, FL3 and FL4. The inside piece, you can mark your registration. Okay? And if you do this, it'll make putting this thing together child's play. Alright? When you do this on the outside here, you're going to do the inside, the outside. So you have all the inside lines on these and all the outside lines where we're going to mark those registration points. And that's really all you need. Okay? Everything else is a small enough curve, very easy, match the ends, the center, and it lays together. Alright? But when we get into these, this curve starts down in here, goes all the way through here, and up around there. And that's where people end up having problems with it getting together. And if you have those registration lines, you're going to end up with a line here and a line here. And it's just the threads, and it's actually would be on this one. So you would end up, when you sewed it together, you'd have these threads across back here. And the process of trimming all of the papers to the exact size, it trims the ends off really clean. All you have to do is pull that thread and pull it out. Okay? And you don't have to go through, so if you make the mistake of marking with the friction pin and you iron, you just lost all your marks. If you use chalk, by the time you use steam on it 2 or 3 times, you've lost all your marks. Okay? If you use a black ink pen, you have to make sure it doesn't go all the way through. So we've just found this to be extremely successful. All right? And in the pattern that's up there on the wall, the prickly pines cone, it actually uses this technique and it's printed in there. Oh, you have it.
I have the
sample.
Yeah.
So if you look, see where these lines are coming across right here?
Oh,
piece
yeah.
to piece. So what we did is we marked them on this, and then this was inserted after the fact. And it comes out perfect on the ends because of that. Right?
Good idea. Cool.
You see what I'm saying? And then all we have to do is just take and grab a hold of this and pull that, and it comes out. All right?
Perfect.
Very cool. So to do that, we're just going to come up here. I'm going to set it at my machine, and I'm going to sew.
How long are you making this stitching?
Oh, 1 inch.
No, I think
No,
it's like
it's
a 2.5.
Oh, I think we're probably at about a 2.5 right here. If you get it too big, it pulls out when you remove the paper. So it doesn't have to be really, really tight.
So stitch length 2.5 and come in about an inch from
Yep.
the edge.
And how are you sure that you drew a straight line from the edge towards the center?
How do I do a straight line?
I mean, how are you sure that it was going straight? Like
But the
that
It's
it wasn't
not going to make
angled?
that big of a difference.
Okay, not that big of a deal.
No, because when you start laying them on top of each other, they're not going to lay right down anyway. One might be twisted, but at a 1/4 of an inch, they're going to hit.
Okay.
And there's so much give in what you're working with because it's all bias. You can make it fit, and anything in between is going to lay down for you. All right? So now when I come back after I sew that edge, I can trim this down to the exact size. And so now it'll make it really easy for us to pull all of those threads out when we're ready.
So we would need to go back onto the FL3 and 4 and do some basting like that.
Yeah, before
Okay.
you go any further with it.
Okay.
I just kind of missed the line a little bit. So, now, there's basting lines on the inside, but I don't want you guys to do those yet. So I'm going to pin this one to the wall, and you guys are actually going to use this as a sample as to see what to do, all right?
Okay.
All right. So now we're going to go to the actual pieces over here. And I'm going to actually do the basting on this piece right here. Sue, is this another quilt that you're making, or did she
Yeah.
take out? Is it?
Yes. I have a wall hanging in the corner of the house. So.
The other thing I really like about this basting is now we don't have to worry about any of that fabric moving on it. And this one moved on me because I didn't hold on to it. So I'm going to redo that little piece here. Now I'm just going to quickly take all of these and get rid of those threads. Okay, so this piece has a bias strip on it, all right, that had to be cut on the bias. Does everybody in here know how to cut on the bias?
Now we do.
Anybody say no if you don't know how? All right. This piece you had to cut a template for, all right? And the reason why is because we started out with a bias on here. It was too wide. And so when we tried to get it to press down, it just bubbled. And we couldn't get it to lay down. So we decided that we had to go with this thin bias strip on this one, and we put a template piece on there, all right? So I'm going to show you both ways because the technique is a little bit different. And we're going to start on this one. So remember yesterday when we did we sewed on the that solid line, the seam allowance? Well, this actually tells me right here, line 1 basting stitch line, okay? So in your instructions it tells you to sew on the basting stitch line. It does not really matter how big or small that stitch is, because you're going to end up cutting it off in the end, right? So just make sure you sew on it. So remember that basting stitch line. You can't see it very well, but it is there. All right. So now we're going to take our pin, and notice I didn't do any marks with my registrations yet. So we're going to take our glue pin here. We'll start right here, and we're going to put our glue on there.
You're going on the stitching?
On the basting stitch line, just like we did before.
Inside the basting stitch
Right.
line.
And we're just going to very loosely put that down. Don't stretch it. And you're going to have to work it around that little, where it starts turning the other direction for you. Because this has an S curve in it.
Do you give it a little bit of extra fabric when you're doing that? Or
No.
Do you, no?
No, you'll end up with a pucker in it. You just have to let it lay down.
Okay.
And you can tell if you don't have any wrinkles and puckers here, then it's going to work. All right. So this is what it's going to look like when you're done. All right. Now it's going to make it really hard to sew. So what we do is we just hit this with a steam iron. So I'm going to go back here to an iron. And once you press that with a steam iron, it lays down there just perfect. Alright? Okay, so now all I have to do is I can flip it over and I can sew right on line 1, or I can just put my 1/4 inch foot along here and sew it right like that as well. Right? So I'm just going to flip it over. Now this is a permanent stitch line that I'm making right here. Huh?
Had you adjusted your stitch length?
You know, I never changed it
Okay.
because the basting line gets cut off, so it really doesn't matter what size it is.
You're actually sewing on which line?
The sew line.